Change is a constant in life. As you may have noticed last Sunday, there was no electricity here. I was gone. All kinds of things can happen. Change is part of this material world. I want to thank Reverend Medora and those who stepped in last Sunday as you experienced Unity and Marin Unplugged. And once in a while, we'll have Unity and Marin Unplugged. People seem to like that. I got feedback from our virtual community. I can't get you online. It's like, yeah, there's no electricity, but we love you. And so things change in this world. You may notice your furniture sometimes may get worn or torn or something, or your car might get dings in it, or I don't know, your jobs may change. You might have a change in relationships, or there might be a change in your body, where things that you used to be able to do, you can't do now, or maybe things you couldn't do before, now you can. I can do more now than I used to be able to, actually. And you may look in the mirror and you don't see changes in yourself, but when you go to a reunion, what happened to all those people? Have you ever gone to a reunion and you're thinking, wow, I remember when that person was... Anyway. Things change in this material world that we're in. And that's one of the constants in our world is change. And that can include loved ones making their transition as we are honoring with our Day of the Dead altar. The power of this month is elimination or renunciation, release, sometimes it's called. It's letting go of those things that are no longer available to us or are no longer serving us. It means letting go so that something even greater can emerge. I was doing a celebration of life service yesterday for Andy Nakashima, 24-year-old man that the police had been searching for months. And I heard these beautiful stories of how Andy had touched other people's lives. And we were using the metaphor of butterflies. We had origami butterflies. Because whenever Andy would go to a restaurant and he would leave a tip for the wait staff, he would fold the money into origami butterflies and leave the butterflies for the wait staff. And it became a symbol for our celebration of life service yesterday as we thought about, this caterpillar-looking thing that used to crawl on the ground and then went into this cocoon, a tomb-like structure so that it could emerge and blossom as a butterfly. It has that hope of there's something within us that can never die, and it expresses into an even greater expression. So today I'm looking at what does grief and transition teach us? Because it has lots of lessons to teach us. And as the statement from my friend Mirabai Starr said, none of us asked for this gift, but there's much that we can learn from it. Grief is a teacher. Have you ever had a really hard teacher? Grief is a real hard teacher, but we can learn a lot from it. As many of you know, and as I mentioned, I went to Wichita, trying to get my orientation here. It was not last week, but the week before on Wednesday. Got to the intensive care room, MICU, Medical Intensive Care Unit, room 15, to be with my brother. And it was obvious that it was time to remove him from life support. But it never feels like it's time. It never feels right. It's like, it's obvious that we need to do this, but it doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel, how can I let go of the person who taught me to play basketball, of the person who was a baseball pitcher, and I would be his catcher, and catching his fastballs and his curveballs, my hand would swell up and turn purple, but I continued to catch for him. He taught me to play chess. He was 7 years older than me, but he loved to spend time with me. He would buy new albums. He bought this Sandy Nelson album. Do any of you know who Sandy Nelson is? There are a few. This goes way back. Sandy Nelson was a phenomenal drummer. And I remember listening to this album of Sandy Nelson, and that's where my love of drumming began. I became a drummer. And my brother would bring home all these different albums, and then he introduced me to Jimi Hendrix, and then Led Zeppelin, the drumming of John Bonham. And then I remember him bringing home, I got a new album, let's go listen to it. We went into his room, it was Black Sabbath. And it's like, ooh, this is getting a little dark. I like it, but ooh. And, and then he had this spiritual awakening, and he started introducing me to very spiritual music. I mean, this person had been a mentor and father figure. How do you let him go? Some of you have done that, where you've let go of someone who has meant the world to you. And it doesn't feel right. It's never the right time. And we're never ready. I hate it when nurses walk into the room and say, "Are you ready?" No, but I know it's the right thing to do. What do we learn from those moments? Well, one of the things that I learned is that in this world, there's a lot of transitory things. There's a lot of things that change. Things shift. And those of us who resist it suffer. Now, I'm not saying to not stand up for what's right. Yes, we need to stand up for what's right. Yes, it's important to stand up for important social change in our world. It's important to stand for what's right. But, I think of that Star Trek, the Borg. Resistance is futile. Grief, change, transition, whatever is going on in your life, change in relationship, change in your body, change in relationships, change in jobs, whatever's going on, it's like the rapids. As a kid, 7th grade, I was riding in a 2-man raft with another young man, attention deficit, rebellious guy. I don't know if it was an accident or not, but I found myself out of the raft. I was going down the rapids, and I thought, I'm going to keep my face up so I can breathe. I'm going to keep my feet in front of me. I'm going to use my legs as shock absorbers. I'm going to be on my back. And I'm going to ride the rapids without a raft. And I did. It's quite a journey. And Sarah LaValle, before I left to go to Wichita, knowing what I was encountering, and we were using this metaphor of going in the rapids, gave me this advice just before I went out the door of the office. Keep your toes up. Go with the flow. Let grief carry you. Let this process carry you. Whatever you're experiencing, it has great things to teach you. Keep your toes up. And what I've learned, just as I learned in those rapids, what I've learned in life is that there is something within us that is indestructible. There is something in us that was never born and will never die. There is that presence of God. In Sanskrit scriptures, it's called the Paramatma. In Christian scriptures, the Holy Spirit. There's this presence of the divine living itself as us, and it can never be defeated. Charles Fillmore, the co-founder of the Unity movement, called it the I am presence, the Christ, the divine living in us and as us. This divine presence, the I am presence, will never be defeated. And no matter what you're going through, if you're living in a car, if you're staying in an intensive care room with someone that you love very much and you're about to let them go, if a relationship ends, the real you can never be destroyed. The real you is God. There, I said it. The real you is his presence that cannot be defeated. The I am presence. And when one goes into grief, there's the opportunity to really learn that, if you allow it, to let that power, that presence, to come forth. Another thing I learned in grief and in transition is the importance of Sangha, the importance of a sacred community to uplift you, to hold you up. Those prayer chaplains were in touch with me while I was gone, and my prayer chaplain was sending prayers on my phone or in writing. They're available after the service. Those prayer chaplains and that support group, this spiritual community is a place to help hold us up, hold our toes up as we go through the rapids. Rapids come with life, but we don't have to go down with it. We have a community that helps hold us up. And what I'm aware of, and maybe you've experienced this in deep grief, is how in the sadness and in impossible circumstances, the beauty of simple things comes forth. Just being able to take a big stretch, or to hear birds singing outside the window, or looking at the dew on roses, or seeing the beautiful lawn out here in the courtyard. I notice all these nuances, and I inhale them, and I breathe them, and I just live in it. So grateful for life. If you allow it, grief and transition teaches us how important and valuable all of these simple things are. The things that we thought were so important aren't many times when we go through a time like that. That book, Don't Sweat the Small Stuff, and It's All Small Stuff, Ron Carson? Richard Carson. When you're going through grief, you really focus on what's important. As I was in the airport, trying to get to Wichita, I flew all night. Let's see. Okay, Tuesday night, went to San Francisco Airport, trying to reconstruct all this. It's crazy. You take the Marin Airporter, and you get there an hour and a half, 2 hours later, and then you wait for the plane, then the plane takes off. I flew all night so that I could get to Wichita early, and flew to Dallas. And in Dallas, the plane is having a mechanical problem, and they're checking it out, and there may be a delay, and we'll get back to you soon. This is code language. for you are screwed. I would love it if they would say exactly what they mean. As fast as you can, get another flight. But I didn't know that's what it meant, so I'm waiting, to hear what's going to happen. And, ended up spending the whole day in the airport, in Dallas as I'm trying to rush to get to Wichita. And, I'm getting anxious and antsy and all that. And eventually get there, and did get there in time to be with family and say my goodbyes and be with my brother as we removed life support. So on the way back on a different airline, I was in the Wichita airport, and they said, there's some delay. There's winter weather, ice and snow. It takes hours to de-ice at some places. And so I noticed a change in me. It's like, why sweat the small stuff? It's no big deal. There was a friend of mine there, a realtor by the name of Art, and Art's like, our flight's been delayed. What about our connections? How are we going to do this? I said, Art, it's going to be okay. I could see myself in Art. I said, Art, it's going to be okay. We'll get there. It's okay. And so I thought, well, let's see. So while I was waiting, I called the family that I was doing the memorial service for, made some additional plans, and waited so long, I thought, man, I need to get something to eat, and I love Wichita. I was in the Wichita airport wanting something to eat. I'm vegetarian. Ever been to the Wichita airport? If ribs or burgers are your thing, come to Wichita. But, so finally found some vegetarian food, a vegetarian pizza thing, and they're fixing, and they're getting ready to board my plane, and you'll probably know which airline I was flying on this time because I got A3, so means I'm up close to the front, and it's like, come on, pizza. And so finally got my pizza, in big boxes, and I got this carry-on bag. So I'm rushing over to get in line with my bag and my big pizza box. And it's right out of the oven. And, the smell of pizza is just going everywhere. And I get up to my space at A3. I'm standing there with my pizza, starving people all around me. I didn't feel entirely safe, but got onto the plane. And with this particular airline, there are often people who have traveled from other places who are still on the plane. So, you might be A3, but there's already people in there. And so I find a seat that I want to sit in. They're not reserved seats. You pick it. And so I go in behind this row of women. And they're like, you smell that pizza? Yeah, I do. Wow, that pizza smells good. Whoever has that pizza ought to share it with us. Now, they didn't know I was right behind them. And I thought, okay, this is my comfort food. I'm hungry. But I realized, Why sweat? Why sweat the small stuff? I mean, it would be a joy to share. And so I open my pizza box, which then is like, and I lean forward with the pizza, and I say, would you all like some of this pizza? Now, they've been delayed too. They've been on that plane a long time. They're very hungry. And they're like, oh, it's you? Yes. Really? Yeah. You want some? Well, you sure? Yeah. So they have some pizza. And it's just the way I am. It's the way I think. I tend to think in metaphors and theological symbols. It's communion. We're having communion together on the plane with vegetarian pizza. And there's a joy. And I've realized that my grief has heightened the experience of sharing. My grief has heightened my sensitivity to others and has removed some of the veils of my heart. My grief has opened me up to really connecting with people even more and not being fearful. Because I want to be really present in the moment and really present with the person in front of me and really present with myself and really present with the divine presence, realizing it's important to focus on what I'm really here to do and not get all lost in the small stuff. So we're having pizza together, surrounded by hungry people on the plane. And I realized the joy of sharing. I thought, how odd that grief has made me even more compassionate. That grief has opened up my heart even more. That grief and transition has helped me to be even more of what I really am. Yeah, it's painful. It's not something we would ask for. But it's an opportunity to go deeper. It's an opportunity for service. Who would have thought that? That being in pain is an opportunity for service. So as we've been studying about sacred service and ways to reach out to others in compassion, that's part of our journey as we're going through the rapids, keeping our toes up. As we're going down the rapids on our back, and someone else is going down the rapids on their back. Want some pizza? Reaching out to them. Because actually we're all in the rapids together. We're all in this together. What affects one affects all. We're all in this. Grief has so much to teach us. And as you can see, grief also teaches me that humor is important. Not as a distraction, but my laughter and my tears frequently come from the same place in my heart. And sometimes I'll do both at the same time. Have you done that where you've had such a deep belly laugh that you cry at the same time? I'm convinced it's from the same place in our soul. Live life. Enjoy life. Honor those who've touched your lives. Reach out in service. And know that the divine, the I Am presence, living itself as you, has got you. As you're going down the rapids, keeping your toes up. Thank you.